Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. We're going to start with Naomi this morning, Peter. Sorry. How are you this morning?
It's because I wore a dress, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we should have wore it today.
No, actually, that's not the truth. But you do look magnificent today. I've told you that like twice, and I'll probably tell you one more time before you go.
Well, thank you. A lady always loves to hear a compliment.
Well,
but as you've stated before...
the name of today's show is Let's Make Real Estate Great Again. We can do it by becoming FSBO agents. So the reason why I decided to go to Naomi first is I want to throw some controversy in there, and I don't want to do the normal things that we normally do. So normally I go over to you, Peter, first, and then I go to Naomi, but I decided this morning we're going to do things different.
Well, I thought I said hello at the beginning of the show, and she said goodbye at the end of the show. So do I say goodbye at the end now?
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, these are complex questions you're asking.
Yeah,
Let's
is
not
way
delve.
too far in
That's
advance.
very philosophical. So.
I'm really confused.
What else is new?
I'm just going to sit and let you run the show.
Peter being confused. I find that hard to believe. Nah.
Oh, man.
That was a shot at
All
Peter. Right. That was one of those comments I was talking about earlier, by the way.
What? Oh, yeah.
Covert hostile.
Overt. Obvious.
Covert.
That was obvious.
All right. Episode number 111, Peter.
Yeah.
My God, we're getting old. We're getting old. My goodness. Let's make real estate great again. Emma. Poor Emma said, as soon as I handed her it and she had to type it, she said, "Really? Is that what you're going to call it?" Right away, she associated it with Trump. We're not going to be talking about Trump, okay?
From the other room.
From the other room, yeah.
What?
I'm sure other presidents have said similar things, though.
It's a great concept.
It's a great concept.
It's a great concept.
Good Phil.
Absolutely.
Well, what's the alternative? Let's make it crappy? Come on.
Or we can do that.
We already did that.
How do people complain about
Really?
that? I don't care who
that.
it is, what it is,
Or we
just
can
whatever,
pull from the
whoever it is.
previous presidency, and yes, we can.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so let's make real estate great again. We can do it by becoming FSBO agents.
FSBO agents?
In this podcast, you will learn exactly what a FSBO agent is and how it will help you make tons of money. The big question has always been, Peter, the big question
I'm listening, Bill.
has always been realtor versus for sale by owner.
Yeah, I suppose.
In this episode, we will cover some precise and specific points that will put the real estate industry back in balance.
You're
back
seeing it
in
out.
Well, that would
out
be
of
fair
balance?
at least. I thought you were going to say, out of business or something. But
No,
it's just back in balance.
Back in
Okay.
balance.
Yeah.
Let me see. So that seller will flock to you, the FSBO agent, when it's time to sell their property. So if we put the industry back in balance, which is not hard to do, we could put all that energy into sellers coming to us because they'll believe us.
Yeah, and I've seen houses in my own neighborhood. You see a for sale by owner sign, and a week or two later, real estate agent.
Sure.
Right.
They give in, and they're it's a 1-2 punch.
And possibly they hear some of the actual data, because a lot of for sale by owners don't realize that they really do need help. I mean, not all of them. Some of them are pretty competent, but either help from a FSBO
We
agent.
are going to go into all of that. All of that. Let me finish reading the description.
I wondered if you might. Okay,
It
so
must
go
be a
ahead.
good topic because I can't even get through the description without us talking about it, right?
It's like she's setting it up for you, Bill.
Yeah, evidently. So, by the way, I'll have you know, the way this podcast runs, if we haven't talked about it in a while, is until we get on the only one that knows what the show is about is Emma, because she writes the description. Peter and Naomi have no clue what we're going to talk about. It's total improv, and I want it that way. I've wanted that way for 111 shows. So they have no idea what I'm reading until I read it.
So none of this is scripted.
This is not scripted.
Although maybe it should be.
All right. Yeah. We might want to start doing that. So I'm going to start from the beginning of this so we can get the whole flow, okay? The big question has always been realtor versus for sale by owner. In this episode, we will cover some precise and specific points that will put the real estate industry back in balance so that the seller will flock to you, the FSBO agent, when it's time to sell their property. The
Methodology.
Methodological
It's a tongue twister, folks.
methods that we will talk about today is a major jumpstart for your income. I'm going to get a major jump to your getting and making more deals and income without ever talking whatever. I screwed it all up. Forget about it. Let's go.
We know what you're saying,
Yeah.
though.
So it's supposed to say, I don't know what my problem is here.
Implement these
It's
Methodical.
methodical. Yes.
Oh.
I got messed up on the
methods,
word
methodical methods. So that is
There
a
you go.
bit of a tongue twister.
Well, it's not one that my tongue likes. The methodical methods that we will talk about today is a major jumpstart to you getting and making more deals and income without taking forever to learn. Wow. Took me forever to get all that out because I had methodical screwed up in my head.
You wrote it.
I know. I did write it. And I
Sure,
know exactly what the word means too, but I just had trouble pronouncing it. Again, it's improv. I didn't practice. All right. So go ahead, Naomi. Realtor versus FSBO. You were off on a tangent. Continue,
I was off on a
please.
tangent. So just to throw some stats out there, close to 100% of actual legit buyers that are qualified to do an instant, purchase. They've been through the mortgage process and, they know they can afford a home, work with a agent to find them a home. Why? First of all, an agent has fiduciary responsibility if something gets messed up. 2, they have access to the MLS. 3, they're busy. They just want to tell the agent, what they want, what they're looking for, and the agent drives them around. And 4, they think that the agent is a consultant, which we've touched on that before, where the agent actually is not a consultant. In fact, the agent works for the seller. So anyhow, bottom line is most qualified buyers to do, that instant purchase. It's not instant, there's still a process, but the typical purchase that people are expecting work with buyer agents. Now, buyer agents deliberately avoid FSBOs because if they are the only agent in the deal and they're working with a FSBOs are notorious for not signing with another agent. They'll say, okay, you can be the buyer's agent, but I'm going to be just representing myself. So they really avoid that and steer clear of it because there's actually a lot more finesse to a sale than what a typical seller would think. And not all sellers are like that. Some sellers are very experienced, but by and large, they don't know what they're doing. And so then the agent is then having to do the work of 2 agents,
Right.
pull the deal together. So, and then the FSBO wonders, oh gosh, why is my house not selling, and.
So let's throw some numbers at it. Let's summarize what you just said. Can we do that?
Okay. Did you want to summarize it or
No,
I can
I will
summarize
do
it?
I'll do
Okay.
it. So 87-88% of for sale by owners hire a realtor
Yes.
because they have trouble doing it themselves.
Right. They realize after, nothing's happening.
81% of all buyers are not qualified for a mortgage.
That's correct. So that smaller percentage, that 19% is typically working with an agent.
Right. So if you go back to our podcast, episode 90, okay, I talk about battling the real estate mafia.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is, which I think that's one of my favorite shows. One of my
It's a good
absolute
show.
favorite shows. I mean, I've done 111, but that one I had a blast. That was a great show. And basically what we talk about there is when you go to the closing table,
Mm-hmm.
in other words, a closing table means money and deeds are exchanged. So if Naomi owns a house and I'm buying it from her, that means I'm going to satisfy Naomi, usually with money,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to satisfy her enough that she's going to give me a deed and put it in my name. So I now become the new owner of the property.
Yeah.
That's the definition of a closing.
Yep.
Okay. And a lot of things happen to get to a closing. Okay. And a lot of different states handle it differently. But at the end of the day, that's what happens. Deed transfers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you get to the closing table, meaning you're there and everybody's at the table, like physically, nowadays it's not that way exactly, but when you physically get to the table and that deed transfers, here's what happened
Right.
in a quick summary. The realtor brought the buyer. The banker brought the money. The closing agent, or in our state, the attorney brought the
Mhm.
paperwork. The insurance man brought the protection. And the title guy made sure that the future is not going to zap you with a bad paperwork.
Right.
Right? So that's what happens at a table. Now here's the point. If the realtor brought the buyer,
Yep.
right, and the banker brought the money, right, and the insurance guy brought the insurance, and the what am I missing? The title guy brought the title. I'm missing one there.
Get the attorney.
Yeah. Anyways, what do these guys get out of the transaction?
Money.
Fees. Right. Their fees.
Money.
Yeah.
Right. So who has the most to gain from the transaction? The seller and the buyer. Who has the least amount of education in the process?
The seller.
Same too.
The seller and the buyer.
Yeah.
Right. Now, absolutely, the seller is running the show. So we
Mhm.
always say, or I always say, the seller's in control.
Right.
So going back to what you were saying before, what happens with most real estate agents is they get hired as they get hired from the seller thinking that they're going to be a consultant.
Right. Right.
But in realtor school, they don't teach them how the whole transaction works. You may not believe that, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
They teach them how to put it on the MLS, how to keep everything legal, and how to keep the deposit safe.
Right. Right.
Right, and make sure that the purchase and sales contract
Mhm.
is written correctly. That's what they learn in realtor school, and you know that because you're becoming a broker right now. You're taking
That's-
another level.
That's correct. And I always have to add, there are some very good agents out there that really do know the ropes, that I would definitely call them consultants. But by and large, most realtors are, they do it as maybe a side thing. and
So
they
my
really don't know what they're
definition of
doing.
that is that if you have a realtor that's doing 20 plus deals a year,
Mhm.
they've walked over the threshold of, and that's an exact number for me,
Right.
because if most realtors do 4 or 5 deals a year because they're part-time, they're whatever. If they do 12 in an office, they're considered a good agent. I have found from my experience after doing a few hundred transactions or more now, I don't even know
Right.
how many now. I mean, I'm doing transactions with my clients, sometimes 2 or 3 a week,
Yeah.
So after doing hundreds of transactions, I've realized that what did I realize? Totally lost my train of thought.
You've
Wow,
it
that
takes-
was
the agent-
bizarre.
It takes 20.
Oh, 20, yeah.
20
So
sales.
I realized that when you're hiring an agent, the first question you ask them is how many houses have you closed on, or how many
Right.
properties have you closed on in the last 12 months?
right.
And if it's below that 20 mark, then they're not going to have that consultant type of mindset.
right.
Their sales skills are not going to be that good.
Mhm.
They're negotiating with the. I mean, I've been negotiating for 5 days on a piece of property that I had to do 3 sets of negotiating to get this
Wow.
house sold. I had to
Wow.
negotiate with the buyer when they first did the contract. Then the inspector came in, and I've never talked about this before. I just realized it the other day. The inspector came in. I had to negotiate the repairs,
Because the inspector has to find something, because he's got to be worth his money.
$400. Yeah, they used to be $100. Now it's $400. So he's trying to justify his fee. So he's got to
Yep.
find something.
Yeah.
And then the third inspection was with the FHA appraiser.
Oh my gosh.
So why is it that the inspector that inspected for $400 is not using
not
the
good
same
enough.
checklist that the FHA guy is using? Because everything that was on, so I actually had to negotiate the price of the house with the buyer. Then I had to negotiate, which by the way, once we negotiate the price of the buyer with the price of the house with the buyer, that's what the realtor gets a commission on. So if I go spend $10,000 on repairs, guess who's not participating in that commission? So if like in this particular case, I sold the house for $143 with $8,000 seller can say whatever it was, and I landed at 137. The realtor gets paid on the 137. Now I start going to repairs and I spend $7,000 on repairs. I'm only getting 130, but the realtor didn't get that. Okay, so it's not the realtor's fault. It's just the way the system works.
Right.
And I'm not bashing realtors. I'm bashing the system. This is the exact reason why I say it's out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Because who's in charge of the sale?
The seller is.
The seller is. And who doesn't have the education?
The seller.
The seller doesn't have the education. So what do? They get muscled around. You know, it's kind of like the bully on the playground. You know what I mean? What's the little kid that's getting bullied gonna do? You know? I mean, there's movies made about it. There's stories written for decades about this exact scenario.
Right.
Like, you know, the father teaches him to beat him up, or the mother teaches him to be polite and turn your cheek. And, you know, you got all these controversial opinions about, but at the end of the day, that kid has to stand on the playground and face the bully or run.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. There's no way around it.
Fight or flight.
Right.
It's one or the other.
So this is the exact same position a seller gets put in when they're selling a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly the same.
Right.
So as you guys have listened for 110 shows, we have constantly beat the drum on. I know Peter and I have, and now recently Naomi, beat the drum on. The best way to make deals is to help your seller because they don't have help.
Right. And I think once they start listening to you and the knowledge, and even for people just starting out, the fact is that if you're listening to this show, you probably already have more knowledge than the seller has, because the seller probably hasn't had any sort of education like this. Not all sellers, but most of them out there.
Right. So here's the deal. I'm driving a stake in the ground, and we're going to call it a FSBO agent from this point forward. This is like the turning point, if you want, because truthfully, here's what happens. Okay. When we go through my system, which we will talk about some of it in a bit here, but when we go through my system, which, by the way, most of it I didn't invent. I am definitely an adversary of many other people that have been before me. I am not trying to proclaim that I invented all this stuff. I definitely have invented some of my own stuff, like the 7 deal strategy, which we'll talk about, and some ways to handle things, sales techniques.
Right.
And marketing techniques of how to do it quickly. What I have done is I'm a simple man. I don't like things difficult, right? I call it the dumbassness, okay? But some people think that's self-preservation. It's not. It's just because I like things simple, right? So what I've done is I've tried to make it as simple as possible so somebody could get started quick. Okay, and I think we've done a good job with that, Peter. You and I talk about it all the time.
You see it all the time in your students. People listen to the podcasts and buy houses just listening to just this information and then get more. But
well, you don't overwhelm. You just kind of, you cut away all the extra stuff that, you know, would be, you know, maybe eventually, but at the right time. But you just kind of narrow it down to those 5-10 steps that are
Well,
needed.
I can tell you the course that we put out called How to Buy Real Estate Without a Loan has made millions of dollars with my students, and I have less than 100 students in there.
Yeah, and that course was just put out this spring, and it's already been so helpful.
And there are so many. I mean, there's been millions of dollars in profits made from that course, from people sending me support tickets and help and coaching clients and all kinds of stuff. It's just because it's A to B.
Yeah.
You know, there's no fluff. I wrote that course as if I was training my staff and then realized we should be doing this. Anyways, so what I'm trying to say here is that we sit down, and both of you have experienced this many, many times with me. When we do a presentation, which is also called making the offer in a house, one for one. Now, I lost track at somewhere around 4,000 presentations, okay? And that means nose to nose, toe to toe. That's not
Right.
like sending some, something on the
Yeah,
MLS.
tossing an offer out there.
This is
Mhm.
60,
Have your realtor put an offer in. This
Right.
is you talking to people.
60 to
Yeah.
90 minutes in the
Yeah.
house, walking the house, having a conversation.
Kitchen table, living room, couch.
Right, exactly. Petting the dog,
Starbucks.
smelling the cooking in the kitchen, right?
Dunkin'
Yeah.
Donuts.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts was the last one, yeah. So, one for one, and I mean one for one. I cannot think of, and that doesn't mean that it's true, just because my memory's not always that good, as you saw me forget just a few minutes ago. I cannot remember of a house that I was in where I didn't have to listen to the story about the realtor and about how it wasn't good
Right.
and how they didn't get treated correctly.
Yeah.
So this is not just me being a what is the word I want? Anyways,
Yeah. There's a lot of experience behind what
yeah,
you're saying. You're,
I'm
you're
not-
not just like
I'm
trying
not
to be
making this up.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not making this up. This is
Yeah.
by complete survey. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens on the other side, which is the balance I'm talking about, one for one, every presentation I do, when we go through my presentation
Mm-hmm.
and at the end show them the cost to sell,
Right.
go ahead, Peter, you do
Mind-blowing.
it because you do it much
No.
better than I do.
Mind blowing.
I-
The cost to sell.
It's just strange. They look dumbfounded, like
Wow.
as if like there's been this huge rock in front of their house and they never noticed it. And all of a sudden you tell them there's a huge rock and they see it for the first time.
First time.
And almost every one of them say, how come nobody ever told me this?
Yeah.
Sure.
And thank you.
Yeah.
But they're pissed.
Right.
They're a little pissed. Not at us, but they are.
The
And
ind- yeah.
because nobody told them this. And
Right.
like a realtor who would explain their part in it didn't give them the big picture.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not that whether they should or shouldn't or supposed to or not supposed to, it didn't happen. And they're thinking somebody should be telling me this.
Right.
And they're
Right.
flabbergasted and they're extremely appreciative while being a little pissed off.
Right.
It's the
I mean,
strangest thing.
Even something simple like the negotiating fee.
Yeah.
National average is 3%.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking 200,000. They're not thinking that
They're going to have
that
to
the
knock
buyer
off
is gonna
6,000 for negotiating.
right, and the buyer's going to come to them with like say 180,000,
Yeah.
and they're going to go back and forth, and like they're not.
They never
thinking,
thought
like,
about that.
All of this affects the bottom line.
And the interesting thing is that the reason why it is this way is the old saying, just follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
And who's getting paid for what? I mean, the realtor gets paid for the gross sale. Like in my case, $137,000.
Right.
There is no deduction for the repairs. Although by law, I cannot speak to my buyer because the realtor's on board. Their contract says I cannot speak to them. So I am relying on their negotiating skills,
Or lack thereof.
and they're not even getting, and I'm paying for that.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's
You see what
wrong.
I'm saying?
No, that's
Because
well, why is that? I mean, does
Well,
it have
because
to
the
be? Is it a
difference- the
law?
difference
I mean,
is-
can
Yeah,
you-
the contract
they
says I
only-
can't talk to the buyer.
no, I got that part.
but the
why,
negotiating skills is what you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about why do they not get paid on the final number?
Right.
Because that's the final
Right.
number. Why not?
And I've
Is-
negotiated that in the past,
Yeah,
and
is
I've
that-
lost
is that-
realtors because of it, because they don't have the skill to be able to make it. So instead of getting paid on the 130 that we negotiated, they're getting paid on 137 and do 5 or 6% on $7,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter to them if they lose a bunch of repair money to you. See, it should though, because they got no skin in the game.
Now
for that.
watch this. Watch this. Here's
Well,
what
I don't
happens.
I don't like that part.
Here's what happens. The realtor, my realtor, reverts to trying to convince me to do the repairs so they can get it done because it doesn't affect their pocketbook.
Yeah.
So instead of sticking up for me and instead of, fighting for me, they're trying to convince me to do the repairs. Just do the
Wow.
repairs. Just have your guys. My realtor told me this yesterday. She's on track to do 90 deals this year. 90 deals. It's her husband, and an assistant. Okay?
Wow.
Sounds like she might be a bit overwhelmed. At
Yeah,
this
where
point.
she is now. And part of it is because, I've got 3 or 4 houses with her, and I've been getting sent to my students. She's got her own business, but it's
Right.
like, that's what happens.
I mean, that's what happens when you get like too much. It's just they're not
Yeah.
thinking so clearly from just do it.
Right.
I'm tired.
So she said to me exactly that. Well, why don't you just have your guys go over there and do it? Just like matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
like you're
well-
just sitting there waiting in the van, like with the car, the van's running, the phone's on, like, you need me to go anywhere?
It's
If not,
actually-
I'll just
And
wait
oh, yeah,
here
by
for
the way,
you.
here's an
I'll
extra
just wait.
$3,000 to do it while you're there. Here's an
Right.
extra $2,500, or here's an extra
Right.
$1,800. Whatever I got to write the check for. It
See,
doesn't matter to her because she's still going to get her same commission.
So,
Right. And see, that statement sort of, I mean, I'm sure she's a nice person, but it sort of irritates me because just to go get your guys over there, she has no idea
Nope.
what all is involved in just
Right.
getting guys over there and the mentality of contractors.
Yeah.
if I could tell
Like-
you what we had to go through Tuesday,
Yeah.
mostly him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you get one person and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll be there tomorrow." Tomorrow happens. Oh, emergency or something. Blah, blah. And then so you're like, okay, fine, you're off the job. Next contractor, and you cycle
Yep.
through this, and so she is,
Yeah, we'll just end it with that because we can make a whole show
So-
out of that.
Help me out here. Can you get a realtor and make arrangements in the beginning of the contract with them
Not easily.
that I will pay on the final number?
Not easily.
They just don't want to.
They don't know
well,
how.
nobody does.
Because they know it's a weakness. Yeah, because nobody does it. It's
Yeah,
the
but
normal.
it's fair though.
This is exactly
Why
what
are they
I'm
getting
talk-
paid
this
a
is
money they
exactly
That's what
I'm
this
talking
is
about.
about.
Now I'm pissed.
The
Now this
Now I'm
harmony,
pissed.
So what I'm trying to
bringing
tell you is the
balance.
balance is off. So now we go in and have a whole different perspective on we're here to consult you and help you through the deal.
So wait, let me back up just a little bit. She is the only one that will negotiate to the other agent for, like, say, the cost of repairs.
Right.
And but she's doing 90 and still isn't. Okay. Anyhow, never mind. It was just like kind of mind blowing to me. So
Yeah. And she's very good.
Right.
It's just that at this point she's taking path of least resistance on every deal because she's got so many deals.
she just
She's
wants to
just
close
taking
them up.
path of least
Yep.
resistance
Yep.
because now it's a matter of how do I get. I mean, she calls
And
me
this
9,
is-
10 o'clock at night in front of her computer.
Yeah, and this is probably, like $130,000 deal is probably definitely a smaller deal.
Yeah.
A lot of agents won't take
Yeah,
something.
but I'm not a small customer.
Is right.
So,
Right.
all right, let's move on.
So, okay.
So we get that. So
Yep.
there's an out of balance. Do we agree on that? So
Absolute.
the out of balance is for the seller. What are they getting and what are they paying for? Because they're paying top dollar for it. I mean, 6% on an average deal, a $200,000 deal, is $12,000. So they're paying $12,000 for assistance they're not getting.
Boy, if you ever add up the hours that the agents work for that,
Yep.
ooh,
Okay, good.
and divide E.
So now the other thing that happens that I want to talk about is the other out balance. So they're paying, let's say a $200,000 deal. They're paying $12,000 for this. Okay. What happens with the offer? So I'm selling a house for $200,000 and I pay 6%, which is $12,000. The out balance that I'm talking about is a realtor will bring one offer. And I don't mean one offer like one buyer. I'm talking about one type of an offer, which is a cash deal. Okay? And when I say a cash deal, that means the buyer went and got a loan, FHA, conventional, whatever, and they're
Right.
by the time they go through that process, they're bringing cash to the table.
Right.
The bank is paying for it, and then the bank is on the hook for the money.
Mhm.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
So a terms purchase.
That's
they're-
another
they're
show.
definitely-
what's that?
The bank being on the
Yeah,
hook.
yeah,
Yeah. That was episode something other.
Yeah.
Right. So a terms purchase isn't even going, even though they may know about it. And like
Right.
we were talking on a previous show, they even have the paperwork for it and all the
Right.
documents.
Right.
But it all comes down to the almighty dollar.
So it's one offer. So what the realtor has done since September 13th, 1949 is created an association, which is cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have come up with standard agreements on how they operate as realtors, which is cool. Okay. What they did that was powerful is they started preaching to their sellers, I can find you a buyer and we can close in 30 days. Right? Because prior to 1949, there was no association. There were realtors, but no strength in realtors. You could use them or not use them. most people sold their house on their own for sale by owner, right? And they would make deals, and most of the time people wouldn't have money, so it was a lot of terms deals.
Yeah.
In other words, like Peter says, he jokes around, you know, I'll give you my farm and you pay me 3 eggs, 13 chickens, and 2 goats a month.
No,
right?
Bill, my father gave haircuts like that on his
Yeah.
bike on his day off in Italy,
Yeah.
and they got baskets of fruit and vegetables and wheat at the end of the harvest. I mean,
Wow.
he really did that on
Wow.
his day
Sure.
off on his bike driving around.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? So
Wound
that's how
up
it
giving
used to be.
haircuts to governors, senators, CEOs, and big shots. So long way.
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's really neat.
it's hard work, but
So the
yuck.
realtor comes on board and they say, well, I'll go find your buyer and we can close in 30 days and we can
Right.
what I'm trying to do is the other side of it. We offer 7 offers.
Mm-hmm.
We have 7 ways you can make an offer, and I'm going to rattle through them. If you want to know how to do this, there's a whole episode. It's episode number 98. I strongly advise, especially if this is your first time here, go listen to episode number 98, and I will tell you the name of it here in a second.
Yeah, because that's the backbone of everything we do.
Yeah.
That there's these different offers you can make. So it's not
Yeah.
just the one offer.
It's a
So
great
it's
show.
called 7 Ways to Buy Houses That Realtors Hate and Sellers Love.
Yeah. It's
Okay, and
very
we-
concise. It wraps it up beautifully.
We
It's
did a
boom, boom,
great
boom.
job of explaining. But right now,
Yeah.
what I'm going to do is the first thing that we do when we're on the job, meaning a FSBO agent, the first thing that we do is we make sure we understand what the loan-to-value ratio is. In other words, how much do they owe on the house, and how much are they looking to sell for? So if they owe $70,000 and they're selling for $100,000, it's a 70% loan to value ratio. You take the $70,000 that they owe, divide it into, you put $70,000 in the calculator, hit the divide button,
By
100,
Yep.
you hit equal, and it's 70%.
Yep.
right?
0.70.
Why do we do that? Because what I realized after doing all of these presentations is the only control point that the seller has is of their profit, or we call it equity,
Equity. Yep.
which is the money that they're going to get in their pocket at the closing. That's the only control point they have. Unless they're going to short sale it, which I don't expect them to do. In other words, they're going to make the bank take less money than what they owe for the house. They have to pay the mortgage. They have to pay the taxes. They have to pay the fees. They have to pay. They're not in control of those numbers. So when you're negotiating a $100,000 house and you're trying to negotiate and the seller has no idea what fees he's going to encounter with that $100,000, he's going to embellish it and try to get more money that he doesn't need.
Yep.
So what we do is we enlighten them on, here are the costs. Before we do any negotiating, we want to make sure that we know what the costs are so that we can then figure out how to pay that money. So in this particular case, if they have $30,000 worth of equity on the 70, the example I just gave, a house they're buying for 100, they owe 70. You're going to figure out one of the 7 ways, and I'm going to rattle off right now, on how they're going to get that $30,000.
Right.
And that's the simplicity of it. So we need to first figure out the loan-to-value ratio, what they owe to what they're going to sell. Not what it's worth, what we're going to actually pay.
Right.
Okay? And then we're going to figure out what the equity is or what their profit is. And then we're going to offer them 7 different ways that we can pay for that equity. Okay? And I told Peter this morning I have I have 2 major announcements on this podcast. This podcast is a turner
Oh,
for
wow.
us. This is
Okay.
a major turner
This is
for
a
us.
watershed podcast.
This is huge because I'm announcing that we will be talking about being FSBO agents from now on. That's what we're going to call ourselves. And the second thing is the slot deal. I have to change it. The acronym is incorrect. Because right now a slot deal is a sandwich lease option transaction.
Right.
I'm going to change it to a sandwich lease option transfer because we're assigning the option.
Right. I mean, it's sort of the same, but it is
Yeah.
a little bit different.
It's a
Slightly.
transaction, but it's more specific that it
More of a
transfers and kind
I
of
think
ends.
A transfer will help people to mentally understand it better.
Yeah, so we have to change it. So we're doing that today. We're not going to embellish on that. We'll do that throughout the shows.
Sure.
And the reason why is because the first deal when a person has 0% equity, okay, and their loan to value ratio is 100%, then we would do what we call a slot deal, which means that we go find a buyer, we go find a seller. We go find a seller that's willing to let the payments be made until we can pay them off.
Right.
And we usually ask for 2 years or more. We go find a buyer that's willing to make those payments until he can get qualified for a mortgage. And then what we do is we get the difference between the difference between what we sell for and what we buy for. So if I'm buying a house from Naomi for $100,000, I can sell it to Pete for $110,000. I can pick up $10,000 profit, and then the two of you put a deal together between the two of you where Peter's paying Naomi,
Right.
and you're paying your bills with it.
Right. And then there
That's
you
a
go.
beautiful deal. It's actually the latest and greatest way of wholesaling houses.
Mhm.
So many people talk about wholesaling, and they want to be wholesalers. They want to be wholesalers because they want to make $5,000 or $10,000. You can actually do better with slot deals, wholesaling slot deals. Okay.
Way better. Well, they're much easier to find.
The first thing I want you to understand is this is for a pretty house.
Yeah, right.
Most often a pretty house. You don't want to put any money into the deal if the deed is under your name.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a slot deal. So at 0% equity and 100% loan to value ratio, you can do this slot deal. Okay. And again, if you go to episode number 98, we explain this in great detail.
Yep.
Okay. Or there's a lot of other materials. You can go to flippinghouses4rookies.com and there's stuff on there. Okay. The next one down, if the loan to value ratio is 90%, and they have 10% worth of equity, you can do just an option agreement.
Mm-hmm.
That is much like what a realtor does. Okay? A realtor, not a realtor. A realtor. What happens is you actually get the house under contract
Right.
with the option agreement. You give them some money, usually $100. You can give them $1 or $10 or $500, whatever
Right.
you want to do. And the seller agrees that when you find your buyer within 90 days, usually, they will do a closing.
Exactly. I mean, it's very similar to, like, say you have a $200,000 house. You negotiate with them that you will purchase it for $190,000. Say they owe $175,000. They're happy. They get $15,000, and then you turn around and sell it for, say,
Much like a realtor.
$205,000. Now, some people will say that this is like a net purchase type
Right.
of contract, which is not allowed. But this is not that, because you are actually coming in as the buyer.
Yeah, the
And they're
reason
giving-
why
and they're
the
giving
reason
you
why
time.
you don't have trouble with that, and the reason why you don't need a license to do this,
Right.
is because as soon as I sign an option agreement with you, the seller,
Mm-hmm.
I've now bought myself an equitable share in the property, and I am considered an owner.
Exactly, and that is why. And but I just wanted to mention it because some people, well, like that one lady we were going to do an option purchase on, and then she was, oh, this is a net purchase. And she didn't understand, but something was a little bit loose in her mind,
Right.
as well, where she just couldn't,
Right.
cognitively. Anyway, yeah. Enough said.
Again, the
Something
purpose of
loose.
today's show is to talk about the balance. The balance is off because she's been indoctrinated, actually brainwashed,
Yes.
on the only way to do a deal is with a realtor.
Yeah.
And that is not
Yep.
true.
So
I
much.
have personally done millions and millions and millions of dollars in transactions. Last month alone, now we are in August, in July 2018 alone, my coaching group did over $675,000 in profits.
Beautiful.
Okay, and that's less than 20 coaching
Yeah.
clients. We did over $675,000 in profits without a realtor, without banks, just doing it the way I'm talking about it. Okay, so there you go. I mean, I don't know how many millions of dollars worth of real estate that actually is. I didn't add up
Right.
what we're selling.
Right, because that was just the profits.
That was the net profits.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow.
Okay. So the next one down, okay, so we did a slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer.
Boy,
Okay.
it's been a while since you make any little changes like that.
Yeah. Okay, and it's a transfer
Mm-hmm.
because we're doing a transfer because we're transferring the option agreement to our seller. We're assigning the option agreement. Then there's the option, which is next, and then below that is a standard lease option which works very much like the slot deal, except we're not going to transfer it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to stay in the deal.
Right.
See how it works
'Cause
now,
you're
Peter?
actually
It's much
taking-
easier
yeah.
to describe.
No, that's cool
Yeah.
because you had to like explain it, but the word transfer just makes it very clear that it just
Right.
It
We're
goes.
going
just
to
a
transfer the lease option agreement to our buyer.
Right.
In the lease option section, we're just going to stay in. So that means in the particular case like we're talking about, if we were to, which by the way, the loan to value ratio on that is 85% and 15% worth of equity. So if I had a $100,000 house, that means that I'm buying, the house is worth 100. You're going to sell to me for 85,000.
Mm-hmm.
Your payments are, we'll say, $500 a month.
Yep.
I'm going to sell to Peter for 100. So there's $15,000 in equity, and the payments might be to him $900. So I'm staying in the deal because I want to protect my $15,000 in equity
Yep.
and my $400 a month positive cash flow, which by the year, if I do a 2-year contract, that's $400 a month in positive cash flow.
Right.
Is $4,800 a year.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 years, that's almost $10,000. It's actually $9,600 plus the $15,000 I made. I just constructed a $25,000 deal over the course of a 2-year period.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
It's a beautiful thing.
You might have to rewind this because I went a little quick with
Just
the
rattle
numbers.
that off.
Well, here's an interesting point. People think, well, why would anybody sell you a $100,000 house for
They're
$85,000?
motivated.
It's beyond that. Once you explain the cost to sell worksheet, they find out
They're
they're
going to
not
pay that
getting
anyways.
they're not
Right.
getting $100,000.
Right.
You know, when you sell things, there's a house is so big, there's costs involved.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's not a pencil, so it's probably 85 that they get anyways at the end
I'm
of the
going
deal.
to tell you that
Without the aggravation.
when you learn how to do the cost to sell worksheet, that worksheet, which is the reason why we don't give it away, because I personally have made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Negotiating $15,000 on a $100,000 house is so freaking. When I go take a leak, I think about that more than I think about doing the cost to sell worksheet. That's how easy it is.
Mm-hmm.
Negotiating a house with a piece of paper, and here's the thing: I don't do it. I make the damn seller do it.
Right.
They pick up the pen. They use their own calculator.
They use their own
They
mind.
pick their own numbers. I don't
Yep.
even give a crap what number they use.
Yeah.
And every single time I negotiate 15, 20, 30% off of the price of the house.
And it's their own numbers.
And they believe them.
Yeah, because they're there. It's true. The fact is that people don't go through the process in their head because no one's telling them the whole story.
Because what
Right.
we are doing is we're doing a consultative sale with them. We are consulting them on how it will benefit them. That is
Right.
a FSBO agent. You're helping the for sale by owner get intelligent enough to sell their house. And it's off balance because the realtor does not do that. I'm not bashing them. It's just an isness. It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do it. They're not trained to do that. And we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I can easily show you how to do that. Easily. Okay? Next one down. So we have the top one, and I'm going from top to bottom. So we have a slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer. 100% loan to value ratio, no equity. The next one down is an option. It has 90% loan to value ratio, 10% equity. The next one down is a lease with an option, is 85% loan to value ratio, 15% equity. The one below that is what we call getting the deed or a subject to deal. I'm not going to go into it. Go to episode number 98. I explain it in full detail. Means that the owner, it's like an assumable mortgage.
Yep.
Even though people say that you can't assume mortgages now and there's due on sale clause, that's a bunch of bullshit. That's a bunch of lies. That's myths. I do it. I've done dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of them. They are 1,000% legal. Out of all the deals that I do, those are my favorite. What it means is we actually take over the seller's mortgage payments. We take over the responsibility. We pay the taxes. We do all the maintenance. The seller walks away until we can get their loan paid off. Okay? That is 80% loan to value ratio, 20% equity. The one below that is rehab retail. That's the one that everybody knows, where you buy an ugly house, you buy it low, you fix it up, you sell it high. A&E has done a beautiful job of showing you what a simple business that could be. It's lies.
In
It's
30
not
minutes.
simple.
In 30 minutes. Tune in next week.
Yeah. They cut a lot of shit out. How do I know that? Because Peter and Jesse did a show on, what was it called?
Flipping houses for rookies.
No, it wasn't.
No, but the
First-time flippers.
First-time flippers,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hello. First-time flippers.
First-time flippers.
Yeah.
June
And
13,
they
1917.
recorded in that house. They recorded in that house. I know because I watched you guys do it.
Mm-hmm.
They recorded 7-8 hours a day for 5 days. Actually, it was 6 days.
Yeah, like every
Right.
week or two they'd show up. Every week or two
Right.
they'd show up. Yeah, you see the progress of the house going.
But they were there 5 or 6 days at 8 hours a clip, and every day they had between 3 and 4 hours worth of footage. Okay, 3 and 4 hours worth of footage. So let's just say it's 3 times 5. They had 15 hours worth of footage. That's a lot of footage.
Mm-hmm.
And they made it into 19 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me, okay? I saw it with my own eyes, so you tell me how that works.
Boom, bang,
Okay.
bing. House
was
sold.
just-
Money in your pocket.
yeah.
Next.
Yeah, simple.
It's all drama.
And they didn't show things that you had to do behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And town hall and all
Yep.
those other crazy stuff.
Yep.
And the contractor. And don't you fill the holes when you paint? You know, all those
Yeah.
crazy things.
Yeah. So anyways, that ratio is rehab and retail. That's the hardest way to make money in real estate. Absolutely the hardest way. But it's the most popular.
It's the most known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is a 70% loan to value ratio and a 30% equity. The one below that is wholesale, where you buy them and sell them. Like everybody knows, wholesale, you buy them and sell them on paper.
Yeah.
You don't actually own the houses. That's a 60% loan to value ratio, 40% equity. And then the last one is owner financing, which is 0% loan to value ratio and 100% equity. And those are my favorite deals. Again, go to episode number 98 and you will understand all those. So that's the second way. So the first way we talked about the realtor system and what they do and what we can do for the customer, how we help them, how the realtor is actually not a consultant and we are. The second way is the realtor, and when I say the realtor, I mean the system, the system of a realtor. They present one offer and it's either take it or leave it. We have 7 different ways that they can do it, depending on their needs.
What does a realtor do in terms of loan to value ratios?
They don't.
When they talk
They
to a
have,
buyer.
they have no.
They don't
yeah.
ask how much they owe in a house.
Yeah.
Well, if somebody came with 100% loan to value, what do?
Yeah, they don't
Right.
close.
Would they take it on?
They won't know the difference.
You know, I mean, it might come up when they start talking about the commission that the seller themselves might say that, you know, I have to sell it for this amount and here's why. And I can't go below that.
Which, by the way, is after the house. That's 3/4 of the way into the deal. When they start negotiating, and the seller might have some concept of how much, they don't know how much money they're
Right.
going to get. Usually it happens the week before the closing.
Yeah.
No, I would think a realtor would want to know that they're going to get paid. If
It's bizarre, isn't it?
you mean
They-
you wouldn't ask like
They never ask.
Well, I mean, push comes to shove, like we've spoken about before. Even if the realtor doesn't get paid, there is ways for them to benefit from it because it's a business generator. So all these buyers, whether or not you sell the house, and so sometimes you will find realtors that say,
Yeah, that's something we.
Yeah,
could,
it's something
let's
totally
see, Well, let's just to cover what you're saying. The reason most people think the reason for an open house is to show your house. The reason a realtor wants to do an open house is to find other buyers
for any house that he has.
for other houses.
right, just to get into contact.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's just the way the system's set up.
Right.
Okay. All right, good. So we got those two, right? The last one I want to talk about is some of the things that we do as beginning investors that we do wrong and don't know we do it wrong. Let me get some different notes out here, okay? So here's what happens. When you are a new investor, and I know this because what do, Peter?
You coach people like me and all the other students.
I've been
and
hearing
meetups
this, and I train investors. So this is surveyed
you
information.
see all our mistakes and
This
what?
is not Bill's opinion. This is something that happens over and over and over. Almost every student I got to go through these steps with, and I've named them.
Ooh.
Okay? So first, when you're making offers and when you're doing deals, is you talk too much. You're
listen.
blah, 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 blah. You're just talking too much, hoping
You have
something happens.
You have to
You're-
shut
you're
up,
s-
get in their world, let them talk, listen twice as much as you talk.
They're doing the
Exactly.
script, and I've heard them. I probably have done it too, maybe still. But actually teaching the other person, actually teaching what
Right.
you've been taught, because you've been taught, so that's what you know, so you teach them.
Right.
Here's how it works.
We haven't gotten to that one yet.
You know,
That's
and
a separate
I think
one.
that-
That's a separate one.
Okay.
I think that
so I'm
sometimes
seeing what's
people, you
happening
know,
at
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
they get nervous, and so they think, well, I'm going to take control of the situation. I'm going to talk. I'm going to speak. But there's a saying in sales, is the last one to speak loses.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you really need to let them speak and let them figure out where they're
What
coming
happens
from.
is when you don't have a guided path, you
Mhm.
tend to talk about things that are not important.
Exactly.
It
know.
slices, it dices, it peels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly
Because-
what you should be saying, right?
Right, they're just trying to get their bearings. They themselves are trying to get their bearings
Exactly.
because the seller is going to eventually say, so what do you want to buy it for?
The
Oh,
next
gosh.
one, number 2, is you get off or don't have a script.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, the one Peter's talking about, you're doing a seminar in every offer.
Notice that one, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I just listened to people like, oh, sounds like that's what he's being taught, so that's what he can say.
Right. So
Yeah.
my students will go into an offer and talk like me.
Yeah.
Right.
As if that's all they've heard, so
Right.
it comes right back out.
Right.
Bop,
And
bop,
they,
bop, bop.
sometimes I don't even know what they're saying. They're just saying it. They don't know the reason why. And going back
Yeah.
to what we were just talking about, number 1, you just talk too much. You're just talking because you think that's the thing to say, and it's not forwarding the sale.
Right.
It's not forwarding the decision of your seller.
Mm-hmm.
It's just making you look smart. It's ego.
Well, you got to say something when you're on the phone. If you don't know the
Right.
right thing to say, you're going to say something because you
Right.
can't be dead air.
Right.
So it doesn't come out
Number
good
4, you beg.
always.
You beg. You do this without even knowing it. We did a show on this.
Mhm.
I keep saying radio, a podcast on this. You beg. You're like you're by talking too much. You're begging.
Yeah.
You don't have the
100%.
confidence. You don't. And we were talking about this not too long ago. I keep saying recently that what's the difference between Naomi making a deal and me making a deal? How come we can go into the same house and she can't make the deal and I can't, and I can?
Mhm.
And no disrespect to Naomi, because that's not the difference is confidence. And I keep talking about confidence, and she soon gets it because she's done a few deals, and it's something you have to do for yourself, but it's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
When you're begging, you have lack of confidence.
Mhm.
Okay. Number 5, you sound like you're reading from a script.
Does it sound like I'm reading from a script?
Yeah. And number 6, you can't, and this is the big one, it should really be number 1, you can't answer the seller's questions so that they feel comfortable.
Mm.
You shoot from the lip
Mm-hmm.
is what you do. Is you're not, because you're not scripted. You haven't. They have questions that you don't have a persuasive answer to.
Mm-hmm.
So the raw data is, it's called objection, stalls, and resistance, and you don't know how to handle them. So your seller has an objection, they have a stall, or they have resistance, and you don't have a persuasive answer to comfortably make them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just how it is.
Oh yeah. When you're new, how could you?
So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So
What are you gonna do about it, Bill?
What I have found.
Come on, Bill.
What I have found, Peter.
Well, you're giving us all the things that we do wrong. You need to solve it for us because you're the leader.
Yeah. So, what I do want to talk about the rest of the show, which is only another 10 minutes, 8 or 10 minutes or so, okay, is what I have found is the highest producers, guys that make 7 figures. Okay, I'm talking about big, and that's not even me. That's above my head. Okay, but 7 figures, people that make good money in real estate, especially in the pretty house business, because one of the things that we don't talk about enough is there's more money in the pretty house business than an ugly business for 2 reasons,
Mm-hmm.
actually 3 reasons. Number 1, you don't have to do a lot of work. It's just shuffling paper and marketing, okay? Especially if you use my selling system, okay, which is automated. I mean, the last house I sold was 2 weeks ago. I sold it in 9 days, okay?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and then it
Nice.
moved in and it's done, and I got my money and everything's done, okay? And honestly,
It was a lot less aggravation than all the other stuff we're
I mean,
doing.
I had a couple days
Gone.
where I was answering texts on Facebook and stuff, but I probably had less than a couple hours in selling a house.
Mm-hmm.
Completely lost my train of thought. I'm thinking about that house, and I lost my train of thought. This is like horrible. I was going to say 3 things.
Oh,
my God.
well, you got 3 things. What are the 3 things?
No. I completely lost. I'm sorry. Completely lost my train of thought. All right, so let's just move on and forget about Bill's memory.
It'll come right back.
It'll come back. All right, so the highest producers that make 7 figures and the reason why I'm selling pretty houses.
Right.
So you the benefits are, number 1, it's less time. Number 2, you don't have to do renovations, and number 3, you don't have to put up money. Your buyer can put up money because you're going to get terms.
Right.
Okay.
No private money, no hard money.
Yeah.
None of your own money.
And people don't think that way in real estate. This is another way to put the balances off, because realtors don't say, "Oh, I'm going to sell a pretty house," or "I'm going to sell an ugly house," and they don't realize that there are 2 different methodologies on acquiring them and selling them. They don't get that they're completely different schools of thought. Because I'm going to tell you right now, a flipper, a guy that goes and buys in a house and then puts contracts in, puts contractors in and does all that, has a completely different mindset than a guy that does pretty houses. It's completely different.
Oh, absolutely.
Because with ugly houses, it's all about the house. When you're selling pretty houses, it's all about the paperwork and the terms.
And the actual people who need that kind of house and can't buy the house with the
philosophy
bank.
all the way through. There's like a big fat canyon between the 2 of them.
Yeah, you don't ask the pretty house guy, are you pre-qualified?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's the point.
All right, so here's what I found. So the highest producers that make 7 figures, I'm going to say, in pretty house businesses have mastered these few points to fill their coffers with truckloads of cash. So if you don't, I'm telling you things that you don't know. Okay, here are the things that you do know. Here, and honestly, if you're driving, if you're at your desk, you need to stop this video or stop this. I'll say video because I'm watching the video on Facebook. You need to stop this recording right now. You need to, for real, get something to write this down, because this is one of those pieces of information that I'm just very casually talking about it. But I'm telling you that there are people that have paid tens and tens of thousands of dollars to not only get somebody to teach it to them, but to figure it out. It cost me probably a few $100,000 to figure this out. Okay, so this is not a colloquial, casual type of information at all. Okay, this is 100% like, write it down. Ready? So what you need to know is, you need to know how to talk to motivated sellers on the phone. Just need to know how to do that. Okay? And I'm not even talking about suspects. I'm talking about just how to talk to motivated sellers. If you set up a system and you have an opening caller and they're talking to suspects and passing motivated sellers to you, you need to know how to talk to them. In other words, you need to know how to do the closing call. Okay? Once you're on that call, number 2, you need to know how to get answers on what the seller's internal price is. You need to know how to get what the seller's internal price is. What's an internal price, Naomi? Have any idea?
The bottom dollar.
What are they thinking?
Right.
That they aren't telling you.
You're getting into their world.
So what you need to get you need to get the seller's internal price. Number 3, you need to figure out how much they're expecting. Now, this is on pretty houses. How much they're expecting for a down payment, if they're even expecting that.
Right.
Right? You need to know these things. Because if you don't know these 4 or 5 things I'm going to teach you, you do not have a deal. Don't have a deal. It's mental masturbation. You don't have a deal if you don't know these things. Okay? I'm passionate about this. Can you tell? Number 3, how to figure out what the seller's expected down payment is. I just said that, right?
Yeah.
You got to know how much they want for down payment. How many times have you heard, "Oh, yeah, I'll do owner financing if you put 50% down."
Right.
Like, why would I? My rebuttal to that is, why would I do that? I can go to the bank and put down 5%. Why would I want to give you 50%? What makes your money more valuable than my money?
What makes it so special? Yeah.
Yeah. What's up? Yeah, that's right. What's so special about your money, right? And it's because they don't trust you, and in case you walk away, they get to keep your money. Okay?
Right.
Number 4, how about what the seller's willing to allow for a monthly payment? And there's actual mathematical procedures on how to do this that you can check what you can pay. We call it the MAP formula, maximum allowable payment, which I'm not covering today. Okay?
Yep.
So you have a number. Just like with the 7 offers, you know what their loan to value ratio is and what offers you could make. But how many times have we been in a house, Naomi, where we have a free and clear property and the owner is stuck on their price and not willing to give us any equity?
Right.
So you got a free and clear house that has 100% equity, but you have to do a slot deal because he's not willing to sell for
budge.
less than full value.
Exactly. Or sometimes, more often than not, even over
Right.
the market value, because they have this inflated, grandiose vision,
Right.
romantic illusions of some sort of.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about how about the seller's willingness, or what are they willing to allow you, right? Willingness is a funny word, but what are they willing to allow you to make for payments? They might have a mortgage payment of $1,300 but want $1,600. And they have that right. They can make that decision. So what are they willing to let you do?
Right.
You got to know that. And it's not even about the numbers at this point. This is all about what's in the seller's universe and what are they going to allow. Right? And the last one is, in final, how about how much time they're going to give you, which is what we call the term.
Right.
Right? So how much will the seller actually give you, how much time will they give you to pay off the loan? Will they give you a year? Will they give you 2 years? Will they give you 5 years? Will they give you 10 years? And by the way, this has a lot to do with what they're doing with the money. Sometimes there's, like Peter says, they're selling the house because it's a problem and they want the problem off their back and they don't give a crap about the money. They just don't want whatever to stop. They want something to stop.
Right.
They don't want this to continue.
So
They want it to stop.
So it behooves you to find out what they're going to do with the money.
Right.
That could be a closing factor for you.
So let me just rattle through them again. These are the 5 things that if you are a trained investor, a trained FSBO agent, you will know these things. You'll know how to talk to motivated sellers on the phone, number 1. Number 2, how to get the answer on what the seller's internal selling price is. Number 3, how to figure out what the seller's expected down payment is. Number 4, how about what the seller's willing to allow as a monthly payment. And then number 5, final, how about how much time or the term the seller will give you to actually pay off your loan in time, or pay off their loan in time. Okay?
Cool. Yeah, that's
Cool.
basic stuff. And of course, if they have no equity in the house, it doesn't matter how long.
Right.
Because they're not going to get any money at the end of the rainbow. It's just they need the problem gone. So some of those deals where they're not getting equity, but they're getting the problem gone,
Right.
doesn't matter to them how long it is. And the longer they give you, the more you can give them a little bit
Right.
as far as a payment.
Right.
If it's a really short payment, how much can you give them? You don't have much time to get your money back.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right,
Okay.
so I'm gonna end the show, but I'm going to tell you that I am not going to leave you without something to do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 3 choices. Okay, and it's totally predicated on your dedication. In other words, the listener's dedication. How dedicated are you to actually doing real estate investing and actually getting help? So the first one is you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/quick start. Is it M? Quick start. Yeah, I'm winging this. I don't have the notes in front of me, so pardon me for fumbling. So I have actually a little tiny course. We actually recorded it. It's 45 minutes of us talking about how to get leads. Right. I'm going to just read the checklist to you. So the first part is calling for sale by owners, referred to as FSBOs. The second, this is the checklist, and there's other subheadings underneath these, but make sure your seller meets the following qualifications, right? And then how to find, in other words, you want to talk to prospects, not suspects, so how do you know which one is which?
Right.
Finding for sale by owners, making the appointment, and then once you make the appointment, how do you make the offer in the house? And then once you then you need to negotiate the payment, then you need to negotiate the terms, and then do the paperwork. So this mini checklist that we made is $99. You can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/getting started. That's your first entry point. The second thing you can do, especially if you're local, if you're not, you can still come. On September 29th, 2018, I am going to do we're going to call it, I think we're going to call this, because I haven't talked to Peter about this yet. This is the first he's heard about it. We're doing a one-day seminar that I am going to call, what the hell is the name of it? It's on the back here. Flipping Houses for Rookies Deal-a-thon.
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 Okay. Come on down.
I'm going to be in a room in Wallingford, Connecticut for one day. And it's not really going to be a seminar per se, although there's going to be some things. It's going to be a workshop where we're actually going to, we're going to mentor you. Peter and I and whoever else comes, and Emma will be there. Naomi can't be there, but I think she would. We are going to sit you at a desk, and we are going to mentor you on the phone and how do you talk to people and the scripts and how to write the scripts and not how to write them, how to read the scripts and all that kind of stuff. We have some, at least I have some phenomenal ways that I have been using with my coaching clients to get them to be spot on with the scripts and know exactly what to say, when, where, and how. And that's how we made $675,000 last month in profits, because they're doing these things.
That's awesome.
So awesome.
I hear the guys on the phone. I listen to the coaching calls and their comments. It's just awesome.
That cost for the one day is going to be $197. It's one day, and we feed you because we don't want you leaving the room because we're going to work through lunch. That's another way. The last way, which, by the way, we don't have a URL for that, so if you want to find out about that, you can send a support ticket into info@flippinghousesforrookies.com, and I will get you the information. I have written the sales letter.
You can
Emma.
also go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/support.
Okay.
Send us a support ticket.
There you go. And then we will send you the information. That is on September 29th. I swear to God, Peter, if I had to start over again, I would pay somebody like Ron LeGrand $5,000 to go over what, and I did. I paid $5,000 to go over what we're going to go over in this one day. This is an activation workshop.
I've been to the workshops with you. They don't do this. They show, as an educator, I'm throwing it in. You can learn information. You can sit there reading it. I'm actually working on a whole. You want to spill it?
No, I want to exactly what you say. So, something I wrote in the sales letter is, so how do we get successful at making money in real estate? The answer is simple. Raw truth is, we need to actually do it. To watch someone do it, not watch someone do it for us. We need to physically do it ourselves. We can actually learn, so we can actually learn it.
Yeah.
Not much different than mommy potty training us.
There was the reference.
She can't drain your bladder for you. She can't do that. You actually have to do that.
She can only aim.
She can just show you where to do it.
Right.
And this is exactly what it's an activation seminar. If you've been stuck, you don't know what to do. If you're confused, you're brand new and don't know what to do, this one-day workshop is going to blow you away, because you are going to leave, if I had my way, with a deal or somebody to go talk to. There's not going to be much training. There's going to be some training in between, but a majority of it is going to be us getting you to work, but showing you the steps and what to do.
But actually doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is if you want to get more information, is you can go to Flipping Houses for Cookies.
Cookies!
I'm hungry. flippinghousesforrookies.com/buy without a loan, and that's where my full course is. That's $497. Which, by the way, Peter, if you come to the workshop, I'm going to be giving it at a drastically reduced price.
I mean, the whole course with all the paperwork and all the videos and all the everythings?
Yes. The one that all this money is being produced from, I'm telling you, millions of dollars worth of money. Okay? So those are the three things you can do at the end of today's show. If what we're talking about, if you want to become a FSBO agent, these are the three things you can do. They're gradients. What you really need to do is you really need to do the last one, which is the big course. So Like I said last week, we've podcast 760,000 downloads. How come we don't have more people buying the course and learning how to do it? Because they're just being dilettantes or whatever they're doing. It's your loss, because I got less than 20 coaching clients last month, made $675,000 in profits, and you're listening to a podcast. So what are you doing wrong? You want to make money and sit by the sidelines, or do you want to? You want to make money or sit by the sidelines? So you're going to have to jump in sooner or later, or just listen to the podcast, and we're entertaining. It's no different than watching.
That works too. Give us a review.
Watching
while you're
the
at
70s shows.
Yeah. Give us a review.
Naomi's being polite now. Yeah. So if you want to give us a review, go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/podcast and you can do a review there. With that said,
see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.